And welcome into the first edition of the cricket show that we're going to be hosting here on Global Cricket Radio. My name's Andrew McLean, and I'm going to be joined very, very shortly by Indoosan, who's going to be my co-host throughout this radio show. And of course, with Global Cricket Radio, our goal is to do what we say on the tin, so to speak. We want to cover cricket around the globe, not just because countries such as Sri Lanka, where Indoosan is from, are playing cricket and there's issues related to their cricket, but there's also a lot of South Asians in particular, not just South Asians, but Chinese. But there's a lot of migrants all around the world that have moved places, and so we kind of feel with Global Cricket Radio that we just want to talk about issues related to, perhaps even just the diaspora. But anyway, it's a long introduction. Indo-san, thank you very much for joining us from Colombo. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And Colombo is fine. And really, it's a rainless day because it's been 3, 4 months. Any cricket lover who watched the Asia Cup could have been remembered how rain hampered from ever since we are having like rain, rain, rain. And today we didn't have anything. So we are quite happy about it.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you should say that, actually, Indo-san. I mean, I think listeners are starting to slowly learn that despite the fact I'm from New Zealand and I lived in London for a long time, I actually live in Bali, Indonesia, and it's absolutely mad here at the moment. Like December, there has literally been no rain, and this is completely out of whack with how it's supposed to be at this time of year. I mean, I'm literally having to water my garden when I expect it to be overgrown from rain.
It is because the climate change hitting everybody badly because it doesn't normally rain in Sri Lanka also in December, but climate change does very crazy things.
Well, you're a bit further north than me, aren't you? You're on the north side of the equator. I'm on the south side. But anyway, this is not a geography lesson, although it was probably my best subject at school. But we won't dwell on that. But so in Indo-san, I came across you a little while ago on well, where all, I suppose, cricket people meet. We meet on Twitter. I still can't really get around to
Yeah.
calling it X, but you've been doing some cricket commentary in the Tamil language
Yes.
in your home country, and I wish I could
Yes.
have tuned into it because I'd like to learn another language, but unfortunately it would have meant nothing to me. But how's your experience been as a radio commentator, in your own
Because it
country speaking in Tamil?
Yes, I mean, most of the viewers might be having an idea about the demography of Sri Lanka. We have around 70% of the population speak Sinhalese, around 12 to 15% of the people, 20% people, little bit speak Tamil because even the people who identify them as Muslims also speak Tamil. So we have quite a bit of followers, and this happened in the LPL, and it was a dream come true moment for me because becoming a cricket commentator is a dream I was harboring for a long, long time, and I was so happy that it happened this year.
Yeah, well, it's been a dream that I've had since I was about 8 years old, actually, and then I got in touch with a family friend of mine not so long ago, and she said to me, she said, "I'm really happy that you're doing this cricket thing because when I was babysitting you during the school holidays, all you did was write an entire cricket match for like 2 weeks. So actually, you're the easiest person to look after it in the whole world, but I didn't understand what the hell you were doing."
So I also had a pretty much similar childhood like you because I figured out I mean, in my early teenagers that playing cricket is not my thing because you have to go and travel frequently. And back then, Sri Lanka had the civil war going on, so things were not easy for us to get along. And you need to play quite a bit of long hours on the ground. And whereas, like, my school teachers were not much happy because they thought I'm a kid who studies well. Why not dilute your focus on something else? So there were so many things. So back then onwards, I decided that I need to have a career out of this game, and I'm speaking about the 2000 when I was at this age. So you don't just come across the other uh, professions associated with cricket. You see players, you see coach, you see a physio or a doctor just running in if anybody get hit or hurt, and then you see these cricket commentators and you have umpires. So I thought, like, okay, who would I rather be? Because you see, like, in order to become a physio, you need to become a doctor first. So that's kind of a different dream.
Well,
And
I sort of hear you because we can't all be Kumar Sangakkara, right? I mean, I trained as a lawyer like Kumar did, but I just wasn't very good at cricket.
Yeah, so but like what funny thing? One of my school seniors back then at the medical faculty, and he has played with Kumar Sangakkara for the Colombo University in the same team. They both played for like university before he break into the national team. So I was like, very, very young at that time. So he used to come and speak about these names, and they were very unheard name. And in the initial stages, many 90s kids like me didn't like him because he took the place of Kalu, little Kalu, right?
Ramesh Kalau with Aruna.
Yeah, so he was like a hero to us because when during that age you don't really understand the importance of pace the innings or like doing it, and you you tend to love the guys who hit it fast rather than the guys who actually block the ball, right?
Yeah.
So and you have Saraj Jayasuri in your team, so he kind of like spoiled all of us because this is how the cricket should be played. Because whether it's 50 overs or Test cricket, he knows only playing one way. So
No, but
it was
that was trained though, right? I mean, anyway, look, Sanath became an amazing opener, but actually he started his career out as sort of a bit part player, a bit like me. Obviously, I wasn't quite as good as Sanath, but he bowled a
right.
bit of left arm spin and was smashed a few runs down the bottom of the order from time to time, and he then reinvented himself as an opener, and of course, him and Ramesh Kaluwitharana were incredible in Australia and incredible in the 1996 World Cup. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I think someone like Kumar Sangakkara is a bit of a rarity where, trained as a lawyer, obviously incredibly intelligent,
I
but,
mean, he's
probably one of the
he's
best cricketers to ever walk the planet. But
one
what I
one
would
in a million.
yeah, what I would say, Indoosan, is that he only got to commentary a couple of years before you and me. So I think we're kind of on par with him.
Oh wow, that's kind of
No,
like nice tagline.
yeah, no,
I can
it's
boast it,
true.
my friend.
It's true. He only got there a few years ago, and interestingly enough, when he retired, he actually tweeted. I remember seeing it, because back in the day, he wasn't even on social media, and
Yes, yes,
I was in Sri Lanka in 2018, and I just tweeted him because I knew he
right.
was playing for Surrey.
Right.
I said, "Look, don't you think Ben Folkes could bat at five?" And he replied to me. But then
Yes.
he became a commentator, and so everything's kind of moved on. But speaking of moving on, um, what I really like to ask you about is, in the middle of the World Cup, it sort of came as a shock to a neutral like me that the ICC basically, I mean, I could use stronger words, but essentially told Sri Lanka cricket to go away. I mean, first of all, well, why did they do it? And second of all, how did it make Sri Lankans feel?
Well, so being Sri Lanka cricket has this kind of like, what I say, if I put it in a very diplomatic way, a unique constitution. And so because of the constitution, since the Sri Lanka cricket has like, all the autonomy, certain of their decisions needed to go to the sports minister and he need to ratify it after you make it, and then only you can even putting a squad out or like you make some big changes. Certain things are like
I
it's
see,
it's
I
quite
see.
complex.
So, but
So
this is official though, right? It's not sort of
yeah,
behind the
it's
scenes.
official.
Everyone
No, 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 no.
knows it's true.
Everyone knows. So every time when they send it, because if there are any agreement reached between them, and even if you can see on the Sri Lanka Cricket Twitter handle, they said subject to the sports ministry approval or sports minister approval. So what happened was the sports minister who was back then, Mr. Roshan, and him and Sri Lanka cricket officials were not in good terms for many reasons. So he started kind of like, perhaps I don't know whether he believed he had more autonomy over them, or like, there's some misunderstanding between the constitutions or something like that. So he kind of started interfering in several things.
But hold on,
So
but I think getting to my first question,
yeah,
I mean, the ICC has essentially said, if I understand it correctly, so that's the International Cricket Council, has said we're going to suspend Sri Lanka cricket's membership to the ICC, or in other words, you can't be part of the world governing body because your government has a direct say in what happens. I think that bit's true. Um, but well, what I'd like to know is, well, what happened before that? I mean, was this something recent or what?
because it's what has happened was all of a sudden while the World Cup is going on, we all know that Sri Lanka had a very bad outing in the World Cup, and injury replacement came in, and a lot of other things which they planned. Because for a long time, Sri Lanka cricket was very inconsistent, and the current selectors were like so consistent. They were persistent about putting out a young squad and going them, and so much social media campaigns going on, all these things. So this minister thought all of a sudden he sacked the Sri Lankan cricket board, and he appointed an interim committee headed by the former World Cup winning captain Arjuna Ranatunga and few other
Right,
people. So then what happened was Sri Lanka cricket went to the courts, and they said like, as per the constitution of Sri Lanka cricket, or the sports law of this country, this cannot be done. And the judiciary said yes, Sri Lanka cricket is correct. So while this tag of war is going on, the last elected body who was sacked by the sports minister was reached out by ICC, because they will only reach out to the legitimate body. According to ICC, that's the legitimate body. And they asked,
right.
like, so what's going on? And we want to take some action. So they said, like, now,
Yeah,
okay,
but
go ahead
hold
and
on.
take the.
I just want to ask another. I mean,
Yep, sure.
I want to ask you two questions. One that I wanted to ask before, but what right do you think the ICC has to suddenly decide, who they speak to in Sri Lanka or who they don't speak to? I mean, how is it their concern? I mean, Sri Lanka is Sri Lanka, right?
Yeah, but you have the board who was sacked by the sports minister was elected as per the constitution. So this board is the one who get the ICC legitimacy, because if you have a constitution, your governance body or the board should come through that constitution.
Right.
Because
I
the
see
sports
what you're
minister doesn't
saying.
have the power,
I see what you're
because
saying.
the judiciary told that the sports minister doesn't have the power to sack the board, and
Right.
after
Okay.
that only ICC reached out to the board who was sacked. So
Well,
then,
it
so
sounds
they said like,
it sounds a bit
yeah,
like the what's happening in Europe and football at the moment, where the European Court
yep,
of Justice has said, well, no, FIFA doesn't
yes,
actually control it, so it sounded like a fairly important judgment in Sri Lanka by the highest court in the land, or maybe it wasn't, but close enough to it. But how did it feel as a Sri Lankan, in the middle of a World Cup, to find out that you've been kicked out of essentially, or the way I read it was you're out of international cricket. I mean, obviously we know that's not hasn't played out that way, but that must have been like a real body blow at the time.
Because it was the fans were really frustrated about the performance of the Sri Lanka cricket back then, the team. So then they were like, because they understand the Sri Lankan cricket or the minuters, none of them actually going to solve this issue. It's all about like, some ego clashes, whether you are bigger than me, I'm bigger than you. Because all of these people have a lot of other interests also inside the cricket board. So people just really like, they couldn't take a stand on like, which side to go there, but it was frustrating for them. But some fans who were ultimately frustrated by this bad performance, they said like, okay, good that they sacked us. So there won't be any other national cricket. There won't be no
Right.
any other humiliation. There won't be no any other frustration for us because that came out of through a, I mean, like, years and years of
It
frustration.
sounds like what you're saying is that whilst Sri Lankans might have been frustrated with the whole situation, it actually probably wasn't such a bad thing for the ICC to say, well, let's just draw a line here and say this is ridiculous. You've got to get back to how it was, and let's get on with the job. And speaking of getting on with the job, as far as I'm aware, Sri Lanka still doesn't have its ICC status, but coming up on 6th of January, you've got a series in against Zimbabwe in Sri Lanka. How is that even possible to happen? I mean,
Uh,
it doesn't sort
right.
of
So
it sort of
there's
doesn't sit properly in terms of what if you're
no, no,
not a
no, no.
member. So,
There is an update on our ban. After the World Cup, I think ICC had a meeting in because that's how they do after each ICC event. They have meetings. So in that meeting, ICC said we will partially lift the ban on Sri Lanka. That means Sri Lankan players can participate in leagues. Sri Lanka can play international cricket, but Sri Lanka won't be receiving any ICC funds
uh
until they resolve this issue in Sri Lanka.
what about in the T20 World Cup next year though? Can they play in that?
They will.
Oh, okay.
They will
So
because
it's
they
it's
will be
just it's
because
just it's just a money issue basically then.
yes, because even the Sri Lanka's FTP tours are being finalized by ICC. So Sri Lanka will be playing all the ICC state, I mean, like matches. I
No,
mean,
no,
the international
I
matches,
see what you're saying. It's a bit like a sanction, basically, an economic sanction.
kind of,
Yeah.
kind of, kind of, kind of partially lifted the ban.
Anyway, let's move on to another subject. And you're far more expert than me on this one. But I tried to look. I know the IPL, or the Indian Premier League's been going for since 2008, and if, at that particular time I was living in England, and Brendan McCullum smashed that 154, which I still think's a record.
Mm,
I'm not completely
mm,
sure for the Kolkata Knight
mm,
Riders, but it seems like every year it's getting a bit more sophisticated and in terms of bidding for players that are not previously part of a club. So we know about Pat Cummins, we know about Mitchell Johnson going for like more than 20 crores or whatever. But what I did do one night when I was struggling to fall asleep is I was looking at this guy's analysis, and he identified a few players that could that were super important, but perhaps some of the teams didn't quite appreciate how valuable that particular player might have been. And um, then when I looked at it the next day, it looked like there was one of the Sri Lankan players that got picked up as an absolute bargain relative to, his performance and his ability. So I think you know who I'm talking about. So I'd love to hear what your take on it.
You must be speaking about Dilshan Madhushankar, the latest sensation. So
Yes.
he's the only silver line that Sri Lanka had in that disastrous World Cup, because he was part of the World Cup, ICC World Cup team, and so he bagged I think 21 wickets in that World Cup. So what happened? I'm very happy about that he got picked up. Yes, as you thought, like even a couple of days before the auction, I played a mock auction with my friends, and I picked him for, like, more money than what he actually went to. It's still a strange, because perhaps all the franchises spend so much on these other international players, and they were quite exhausted when he came, because when IPL, when it comes, you have these, all rounders, batters, wicket keepers, and then the bowlers come. So like different sets comes at different time. So that might be a reason, and we are very happy about it. And he got picked up by Mumbai Indians, and that's the franchise that has a very, very Sri Lankan connection with for a long, long time. Because from the inception, Sanat Jayasuriya played, then Lasith Malinga played for like ages, and you have Mahela Jayawardene on the coaching position. Now he's actually elevated above coach and all this. So we're very happy about it. And we have another Sri Lankan picked up by Mumbai Indians as well. So he will be a junior Malinga. So he will be bowling pretty much like Malay, slinging action, and he bowls very well, and he bowled well in the T10 league as well. So
But do
we are
you,
very
but
happy
do,
about.
but do you think there's an issue though, right? I mean, um, what I'm trying to get at is that I follow one particular guy on Twitter, and he said, look, this guy is the best possible value player that you can pick up, right? As you say, 21 wickets in the World Cup. But I don't think they're going to bid high for him. And I suppose what I'm trying to understand, right, is, you know, his wickets tally was better than Pat Cummins, better than Mitchell Johnson. Pat Cummins is not really a T20 player. Not Mitchell Johnson, Mitchell Stark.
Mm.
Hasn't been in the IPL for 8 years. Do you think there's like I don't know, just some other factor at play why they would go for
Yeah,
someone
because
like Cummins over a Sri Lankan guy?
yes, of course, because IPL has this recent bias, right? So Cummins have proven as a leader, perhaps, and because he won two ICC trophies this year, and that might be a reason for him to get picked up. And so does for Mitchell Stark, because Mitchell Stark is coming after a long, long time. So perhaps the franchises thought like it's a privilege for them to have this World Cup winning Australian captain on their lineup. Or some of the franchises completely don't understand how to build a squad for
Yeah.
this.
Well, that
And
that
these
was
guys,
that was kind of what I was wondering, and I mean,
yeah,
in the
because
case of Cummins, I can kind of understand it. I can see him being, you know, doing the next shaver advert, alongside Virat Kohli or whoever. But I kind of also wonder whether Stark has sort of said to his agent, "Look, I'm about to quit international cricket. I've only come back into it because I want to get into this." I'm sure there's lots of other factors under the surface, but I don't really understand the IPL auction. And I mean, and for example, I mean, if you look at what's happened in the case of New Zealanders, Rachin Ravindra, who was, probably player of the tournament at the World Cup, he went for his base price, whereas say Daryl Mitchell went for, well, in New Zealand dollar terms, a couple of $1 million.
but it's there's another thing. Rachin Ravindra is good, and he's like a revelation and perhaps the breakout player of the IPL. But what happens is, like, Mitchell brings up uh, some other skills as well, because he hits spin bit well, and he hits very long, and he might. I mean, Rachin Ravindra didn't score much against India in the semi-final and the
Don't don't
match they
don't
played.
don't don't remind me. I was there.
Yeah. So it was a heartbreak for me as well because I love New Zealand as well. So I've been known as a Lankan Kiwi here because I love them. Uh, uh, Mitchell has actually faced the Indian attack and he just really like scored against him. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like IPL franchise. They like, he proved him better than.
Yeah, but I
And
think,
the position they
I
want.
think in the sun though, I think, you know, even in this conversation, because I don't really understand how it works, and you've got your opinion, is that we're just not experts in, you know, how the whole, let's call it Moneyball thing actually works, you know, and some franchises have a bigger budget than others, and you know, some decide which players they want. Then they've got that player that they want. Let's say that CSK got Ravindra. Then there's like, oh, we've got a bit of budget left. Well, actually, quite a lot. We'll just pick up Mitchell at whatever price. So I sort of, you know, I just don't follow it closely enough.
No, because some franchises,
but Mitchell now
yeah.
might now earn, you know, in theory earn $2 million, but he might not play because Ravindra can bowl. Mitchell doesn't really bowl, so you just never know. And oh, by the way, we call them the Chennai Super Kiwis now.
Yeah, we are because it's a small Kiwi house. They already have like, two New Zealanders, and the coach himself is a New Zealander. So now they have picked up two more.
Yeah, we've got in the
So New Zealand has
Chennai Super.
quite a lot of representation.
Yeah, well, we've got in the Chennai Super Kings, we've got Devon Conway, who was retained, Mitchell Santner, who was retained, and both excellent T20 players, plus Daryl Mitchell, plus Ravindra, and there's a bunch of other guys in there as well. The kind of the mind boggles to see, you know, I mean, Mitchell might not even play a game, bit like Kyle Jamieson a
No,
few
he
years
will.
ago.
He will.
No,
In my point of view,
I'm sure he will. I'm just saying that, you know, they've got to slot him into the side somewhere. And
because
It might be Ravinja that doesn't get a game because Conway's an opener.
yeah, so that should be the most of the way. And as you said, the you don't understand the IPL dynamics. I understand certain things which Mumbai Indians and Chennai Super Kings does because they are the most successful franchise. They know how to build squad, win trophies, and everything in and out. And Fleming is like, very calm and he knows the plan. Mahela Jayawardene knows it because they're excellent captains when they played. If they, if Mumbai Indians or CSK go after a player, that means he's a very integral part of it. Last year, Mumbai Indians went after Green, and Green actually delivered them big time. So likewise, if they go after, I think Mitchell will be playing the majority of the games, according to me, and he might be a like-to-like replacement for Ben Stokes, maybe right and left hand combination, but
Right.
still, I think he will be a bigger part of them. Ravindra might get
I've
one or
got,
two games.
yeah, I think you're right. I mean, Ravindra's best chance of getting in the side is if Conway has a bad run, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
That's unlikely to happen because Conway's high quality, obviously. Anyway, we've just
He
got
is.
a little bit of a while to go. Let's talk about what's coming up for Sri Lanka cricket. I know you've got a home series against uh, the Zimbabwe side, and of course they've just lost their their coach David Houghton. He resigned after Zimbabwe failed to qualify for the T20 World Cup. They lost a couple of guys to through drug offences. But
Yes.
as a Sri Lankan fan, how do you know how do you sort of look at a series in January against Zimbabwe?
Because Sri Lankan fans have a lot of questions to be answered because we got a new selection panel, right? The entire selection committee was changed by Sri Lanka Cricket, and the new sports minister who was kind of having a very cordial relationship with them. So, what type of players they are going to pick for this squad is also will be kind of answered there. And even though Zimbabwe lost a couple of players, and I know their coach who resigned now has actually contributed a lot in their resurgence. But unfortunately, they missed out 2 World Cups, so that's he took the accountability. Still, Zimbabwe has very quality players. Sikandar Raza is there, Sean Irvine and Sean Williams, Richard Engarava, Blessing Musharabani. So they have a lot of players, Ryan Ball, and so they do have their core retained. And Zimbabwe would be coming to Sri Lanka very happily because Sri Lanka is the only place they have won in a recent past an ODI series or a series fully that happened in 2016, which we all want to forget.
Oh, but that's quite a
But
while ago, though, isn't it? 7 years ago.
yeah, but last year when they came, they won 1 match, right? So they actually lost 3 match series 2-1. And the first match was like kind of like 50-50, and then Nisanka and Asalanka was a little bit smart enough to navigate that jitters to take Sri Lanka home. So even Sri Lanka has lost that much, we could have been lost another series also today. So you don't really underestimate anybody at this level, especially they are playing some quality cricket, and we saw what they are capable of doing that, and they are pulling out upsets and all the things. Yeah, they are kind of like, go bit rusty, and they are also like kind of trying to get into the shape and winning the momentum. Sri Lanka is also like there are news is coming that Sri Lanka will be having brand new captains and vice captains. So that will be another reason for us to hopeful about it. And now Sri Lanka has this National Super League. You select from the club level, you pick players and some A division clubs. They come and play some kind of high quality tournament. So the selectors have been seen going there and observing them. So a lot to be hopeful, and Sri Lanka had appointed Sanat Jayasuriya as the consultant to Sri Lanka cricket, which I mean, there's a clear demarcation between his role and Mahela Jayawardena's role. So a lot of things going on Sri Lanka. So we want to see what their plans are and how they are going to build the team and how they are going to take it forward. Everything in the upcoming Zimbabwe series, while Zimbabwe is coming hungry because they know that if they play well, they can beat any team at any day, and Sri Lankan pitches would suit them mostly. So it's
So,
going to be a good contest.
and what comes up for Sri Lanka after that?
Sri Lanka do have like an earful of this thing, and then in February we get Afghanistan coming for one full series, the Test ODI and T20s, and then March Bangladesh is coming for us, or we are going to Bangladesh, and then you go how you have this IPL window, which where normally people don't schedule matches, and then you have this World Cup coming on, then India is coming, and Sri Lanka is going to England after a long, long time, and we are very excited about it because I think after a long time, Sri Lanka got 3 matches, 3 match test match series with 1 match at Lords.
Oh,
It's
yes, of
been a
course.
while that Sri Lanka played
Well,
in Lords.
I'm on the waiting list as a member at Lords, and I got the message through to buy tickets for that. I haven't bought them
Right,
because
right.
I don't live there anymore. But yeah, I saw that. Well, that's pretty good.
And
So,
more than anything, what excites me is New Zealand is coming to Sri Lanka because I love New Zealand very much. I went to see the World Cup just to see Kane Williamson playing, and I saw him playing in the World Cup. So I'm so quite excited to see that New Zealanders coming back to Sri Lanka.
which
So,
month is that going to be then?
so they are coming twice. That's the interesting part. So in September they will be coming for 2 test matches. That's part of the World Test Championship cycle. And in November, they are coming for ODIs and T20s. That's before their summer starts in New Zealand. They will be here in Sri Lanka
What's
playing limited overs cricket.
I'm just thinking about September and looking at the geographical placement of Sri Lanka. I mean, what sort of weather would they expect in September?
Uh, in technically the latter part of or the mid part of September onwards, it shouldn't rain in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Right in August, we get rain because you get this. I think we get this northeast monsoon and northwest and southeast monsoon. So I forgot, like, which one comes in that time because, as you said, I studied geography long time back. So it shouldn't be raining here,
Okay.
but
But where
we
will they
hope.
play? Which locations do you think?
Mostly these days, test matches are being played in Gaul, so there will be one match at Gaul for sure because that ground is reserved for like test matches, and the other
Okay.
one they might play in Colombo because
Right.
we have a ground called SSC. That's one of the
Yes.
oldest, and it has a lot of history and all these things.
Was it called
Single
Sinhalese
sports club,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Single sports
Well,
club.
actually,
So
that's quite interesting for me because
I mean, this is my guess. I don't know. They still didn't release
no,
the
I'm
venue.
I'm just happy to hear it because in September next year I'll be rolling over another year on my birth clock and I can't think of anything better than going to Gaul for uh for that it's not that far from
I mean,
Bali.
come, we both can sit in the grass bank and do a review about what has happened to that.
Well, I've
But
been there.
I'm sorry.
I've been there once before, actually. In Indoosan.
Oh,
I went there
okay.
during the England series in 2018, so I'm very familiar
You're
with
so
Gaul.
lucky I couldn't get tickets to go when England came.
Well, no,
Because when England
you
comes,
don't need a you don't need a ticket at Gaul though. That's the whole point. You don't need
yeah,
a ticket.
but you can sometimes they close the what do you call it as you can't see from the goal photos though,
Really?
because they
Oh,
do
okay.
yeah sometimes time to time. But now I think thankfully UNESCO has told you can't put any uh, artificial structures around the fort because it's a heritage site. So
Wow.
sometimes they might not be, but we thought of like doing that.
Actually,
But I will
just
be
as
supporting New Zealand as well because if Ken Williamson plays, I'll be supporting New Zealand as well because that
well,
that's kind of like
let's hope Kane's there and let's hope his knee's all right because he's been left out
he
of the New
will
Zealand
be. I
side.
think
But
yeah, but
he's just
I
been left
think
out of the side again, and I'm a bit worried
perhaps
about his
part of the
knee.
rehabilitation, perhaps part
Well,
of the rehabilitation.
that's the that's the easy explanation, but I'm a bit worried about his body actually, but that's another matter. Just as an aside, while you're talking about Gaul, I have a book at the moment, and I published it earlier this year, and I've been struggling to figure out how to promote it. So I went online the other day to look at book festivals in Asia, and guess what? The next one coming up is the Gaul Literary Festival at the end of January. So I might be there a little bit sooner than you think.
Wow, fine. So I mean, if you have a stall in Go Literary Festival, so you can count on me. I'll come and help you for like at least a half a day.
Well, it's interesting looking at the list of presenters. One of them is Andrew Fidel Fernando, who's well known, of course,
Yes,
in
yes,
cricketing
my
circles. So you never know. But anyway, Indo-san, look, it was really good to have this first episode of the Sri Lanka Cricket Show, and I'm sure it's going to go really well here on Global Cricket Radio. Um, Great to have you on board, and let's keep in touch over the next little while, and if nothing else, we'll be reporting in on the first match of the Sri Lanka Zimbabwe series, which is actually not that far away
sure,
now. It's just a couple of
sure,
weeks away.
sure. Yeah, so we will be able to do that.
All right. Thanks, Indo-san, and thanks everyone for listening.
Right.
That's goodbye from me and Indo-san. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.